Every September, as summer begins to fade into autumn, Americans take a pause on the first Monday of the month to celebrate Labor Day. Now, for many, it's simply a 3-day weekend, an excuse to fire up the grill, take one last trip to the lake, or prepare kids for the new school year. But behind the barbecues and retail sales lies something deeper, a story of struggle, of sacrifice, and of triumph. It's the story of the American worker and the nation's recognition that our progress has always been built on the shoulders of labor. Labor Day has its roots in the late 19th century, during a time of booming industrial growth. Steel mills roared, railroads stretched from coast to coast, and factories churned day and night. But for the workers, the men, women, and even children, the conditions were often brutal. 12-hour shifts, 7-day work weeks, wages, barely enough to live on. And when the accidents happened, and they did, there was little protection and almost no recourse. It was in this climate that organized labor rose. Unions demanded shorter workdays, fairer pay, and safer conditions. In 1882, the Central Labor Union in New York City organized the first Labor Day parade. Workers took an unpaid day off, marching not just for themselves, but for the dignity of all who labored. 12 years later, in 1894, following years of unrest and the violent Pullman strike in Chicago, President Grover Cleveland signed legislation making Labor Day a federal holiday. It was both a recognition of workers' contributions and a peace offering to a labor movement that was demanding respect. Now, Labor Day may not have the fireworks of Independence Day or the solemn ceremonies of Memorial Day, but its meaning is no less important. Independence Day celebrates the birth of our nation. Memorial Day honors its defenders. And Labor Day salutes the builders. The men and women who laid the railroads, dug the mines, harvested the crops, and raised the skyscrapers. The workers who may never make it into a history book, but without whom this country simply would not stand. Of course, labor looks different today. We still honor steelworkers, miners, and builders, but we also recognize teachers, nurses, truck drivers, software developers, service workers, the full changing face of labor in a modern economy. The question our grandparents asked about fair pay, about balance between work and family, about dignity on the job, are the same questions we're still asking today. And Labor Day reminds us that these struggles and these conversations are not new. They are part of the American story. I remember well my foray into the labor market years ago. For me, that started in 1977, my 8th grade year, when I went to work in my Uncle Ralph's restaurant. Before I asked my uncle for a job, my dad took a few minutes to remind me of the long and storied tradition of Hicks workers that brought honor to the family name by being good, honest, hard workers. He said, "Give an honest day's work for an honest day's pay." And perhaps that's one sentence that defines a great workforce in the United States today. A melting pot of workers from literally every part of the globe. We can stipulate that Labor Day is a celebration, but it's also a challenge. It challenges us to look around and recognize the humanity behind the services we take for granted. The barista who makes your morning coffee, for example. The farm worker who harvests your food. The delivery driver, the nurse, the teacher, the janitor, And many people who work in areas of the job market that very few people want to work. And it challenges us to remember the rights we enjoy today, weekends off, workplace safety, the minimum wage, were not gifts. They were earned by the persistence, courage, and sacrifice of those who came before. So, when we gather with family this Labor Day, when we light the grill or take that last swim of summer, let's do it with gratitude. Gratitude for those who marched in New York in 1882. Gratitude for those who endured the strikes of the 1890s. And gratitude for every worker, past and present, whose effort and skill make this country thrive. Because Labor Day is more than a day off. It is a reminder that the true wealth of America is not found in gold or steel, not even in technology or innovation, but in the strength, resilience, and ingenuity of its people. To honor labor is to honor America itself.